breaking right now. New trouble for former Secretary of State and possible presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Just moments ago, a subpoena was issued to Mrs. Clinton. And the House Select Committee on Benghazi issuing subpoenas for all Clinton communications pertinent to their investigation. This after yesterday's news that Secretary Clinton used a personal email account with private servers to conduct official State Department business. And tonight, House investigators making their move to get a hold of those critical emails. Now, just before this news broke, on the record grilled Benghazi Select Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy on whether he would issue subpoenas. Then he issued them. Mr. Chairman, nice to see you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the news about the former Secretary of State's emails, what are you going to do about it?
We're going to gain access to them, or do our best to gain access to them. You know, we went to the State Department under the assumption that they would be the keeper of the record or the custodian of the records, and it was only last week that we discovered they can't produce all of our emails to us because they don't have all of our emails.
Which suggests they haven't been 100% cooperative if it takes that long to answer a question like where are the emails.
Yeah, you really would think that that would come up in the conversation sooner than last week. We've had compliance hearings, we've had private hearings that were outside of the public eye asking when can we expect production and disclosure. You would think at some point it would come up, hey, by the way, we're not ever going to be able to give them to you because we don't have them. But last week we realized they don't have them, so now we have to go to the source, which would be Secretary Clinton herself.
Okay, you can ask her for them. Right. Or you can do what you and I are used to in our old business, is that you can get them all for certainty, is just slap a subpoena on to get them. Are you going to slap a subpoena on to get those records?
We're going to get them, and we're going to use the legal recourse that you and I are both familiar with, starting with a preservation letter. You send that first, and then there's a legal chronology that you have to
Why do you do that if so far that's been a little bit slow in getting the documents? Why don't you just, you know, whatever the documents are, put a subpoena, get them all, and look at them and see if there's anything there or not.
That is definitely the way the world works in the world you and I come from, but in politics you have to alert certain people before you do certain things.
Why do you think she had this separate personal email account? What's your theory?
Well, lots of us have, you know, work in private email. Just none of us have just private email, and particularly if you're Secretary of State. The State Department had to ask her for our records back, which is the way I view public records. They're our records. So if she was doing it the right way, which was the defense yesterday, why did we have to ask for the records back?
Which means then who's going to do the search and decide which records you're entitled to? Will that be you subpoenaing all of them, which would include her personal records, and you decide what's business and what's personal? Or will the decision what's personal, what's business be left to former Secretary of State Clinton?
We had that debate this morning, one of the lawyers on the committee staff. You have three options. You can either subpoena everything, which is probably over-inclusive. You can rely on her or her attorney to make that determination, which is probably under-inclusive. Or you can do something unusual, which would be have a neutral arbiter, either a retired judge or a retired archivist, go through and say, this is a public record that should have been turned over, and this is responsive to the committee's request.
But isn't that sort of outsourcing the job? I mean, you had the investigation in Benghazi, which was sort of outsourced to the ARB. They did the investigation, so now we're having another investigation. Doesn't it seem that the more direct route is for the committee that's investigating, get the records, look at all of them, decide what's personal, what's not, and then give her personal ones back, and you look at the business ones.
If you can do that, if you can gain access to them, but there may be certain defenses or privileges that are asserted. I mean, I would argue they're waived if you take them away from the State Department, but given the fact that we've gotten so few now, I mean, what makes anybody think that we're going to get all of them simply because we asked for them? I mean, I could see this being...
With a subpoena?
How do we know? How do you ever know when you subpoena that you've gotten it all? That's why you have a Federal Records Act. That's why you have the President's policy about don't use private email, so you and I would never have to have this conversation.
What do you think the time frame would be? If you send the letter first, when would you expect to hear back on that?
I like tight times. I'd say 2 weeks. I need to either have the documents or a really good explanation of why you don't have to give them to me.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
But that's not all. There is more drama tonight for former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton as video surfaces showing Secretary Clinton slamming government workers who use personal email accounts on the job.
You know, our Constitution is being shredded. We know about the secret wiretaps, we know about the secret military tribunals, the secret White House email accounts. It is a stunning record of secrecy and corruption, of cronyism run amok. It is everything our founders were afraid of, everything our Constitution was designed to prevent.
And joining us, the On the Record political panel, ABC News political director Rick Klein and